Welcome to the Family Brand Show. We're Chris and Melissa Smith of FamilyBrand.com, husband and wife, parents of 5, and we want to help you take back your family and to live life on your terms.
And we know being a family can feel really overwhelming. Parents tell us they feel like they're being pulled in a million different directions. It's so challenging to navigate the uncertainty and all the chaos that's happening in the world right now.
And that's why we want to bring you every single week actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become a better parent, to become a better spouse, and to build a stronger family. And look, there's never been a better time and a more important time than right now to take back your family. You can define what your family stands for, or the world is going to do it for you. And the world needs strong families now more than ever. And it starts right here with your family.
Okay, we are shooting a podcast episode, and I have not told Melissa what it's going to be about, which is not, we never do this.
Yeah, as of this moment, I still don't know what we're talking about.
And you're going to see why. There's a point I want to make here. And it just dawned on me yesterday talking with someone who was coming to me for some advice about a challenge they're experiencing in their marriage. And it just hit me. I was like, I don't think Melissa and I have ever talked about this. Like, we've talked very openly about a lot of the struggles and challenges.
And we're going to do it live here on the podcast.
We've talked a lot about the struggles and challenges we've had in our marriage and what we did to overcome them. But there's something in particular that I believe we did that was really critical to the success of our marriage and the continued success and crawling out of a really dark place in our marriage that I just hit me yesterday. It's like so obvious to me that I don't think to ever teach it to people. Because what this person in particular was sharing with me is, and they've been to some couples retreats and done some of Melissa's and done some things with us. And we've taught them what we call the authentic conversations framework, which is how do you have really authentic conversations with your spouse, your children, with anyone for that matter, that gives the conversation the highest probability of a successful outcome. Because a lot of times when we approach what people might call hard conversations, awkward conversations, difficult conversations, sensitive conversations, there's a high likelihood that they don't go well just because of the nature of how emotionally charged they are. So we've just created this framework that increases the likelihood that you can have any conversation, no matter how sensitive or quote unquote difficult it is, and have a decent outcome. So to their credit, they've been following the authentic conversations framework. However, one of the things that just dawned on me so powerfully when this person was sharing with me is, I was like, it's really useful to talk to each other about what isn't working in your marriage and using the framework to do it. Mm-hmm. But I was like, how often are you also, though, talking about what you want to create in your marriage? How often are you guys enrolling in each other into the vision of what could be possible and what you want? Because it dawned on me, and I could tell in asking the question, it dawned on this person that was like, we don't ever do that. And so, Melissa, how critical do you think it was from us going where we were at in our marriage that did not work to then creating what we have now? How important was it for us to talk about what could be possible in our marriage, enrolling each other into the vision of what could be possible, and us starting to talk about like what we wanted in our marriage?
My mind is actually jumping to something a little bit different than that. If we could go there.
Yeah, please, go.
It's maybe even like the precursor to that. And that is, we were just talking about this with the kids when you were out of town. We were talking about this word faith. And what does the word faith mean? And I was taken back to the time when Chris and I were separated, and there was no evidence whatsoever in our marriage at that time that we could have a happy, successful, fulfilling marriage. No evidence.
I would say there was no evidence that it could even be decent.
No. And with that being said, like, there was no abuse happening or anything like that, but just we didn't get along. Like,
no, it wasn't. It didn't work.
And at the time, this is where, in that moment, you were kind of over it, the marriage, and I was like, I wasn't there yet, like, where I'm like, yeah, we're done. I was still like, no, like, I think we can, but like, there's no evidence of us being able to work.
Melissa's like, I'm over you, but I'm not over the marriage in our family.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at. And I was reading in scripture one day about this word faith. And in the scripture, it was talking about all these many miracles, like it talks about miracles in the Bible, for example, like the parting of the Red Sea, and how all those miracles happened through faith and realizing that, oh, the miracle that I want, which at the time was our marriage, like to continue on and for us to like find happiness together, it felt like a miracle. Like it would have to be a miracle. But I was like, but it's not. But these other miracles are even bigger than that thing that I want. Like, and if you can part like a sea through faith, like surely you could save a marriage. And so I felt like that was like something that I thought about a lot. Like, do I have the faith that this marriage could become something more than it is right now, that it could become, happy. We could be happy. We could be fulfilled. And I feel like that maybe had to happen even before we talked about what we wanted, like to believe it's possible.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know we were going to go there because Melissa literally didn't know what we were going to talk about until I hit record. But so it's like, and I think that is applicable to this conversation with this person. It's like you can have all the authentic conversations in the world in a very useful way, in a very effective way, where you're not attacking each other, you're not blaming each other, you're just really openly sharing about what's working, what isn't, right? However, if one or both of you, though, don't believe that it could actually become what it is you want, it's going to be really hard for it to be that. And if you don't have a vision for what that looks like. So my advice, and I think I'll go back, I will go back and give them this advice as well. So my advice was continue having authentic conversations about maybe what isn't working, but also make sure at the same frequency, if not more, you're also having conversations about what you want to create or what you believe could be possible. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I just realized is like Melissa and I started talking to each other about what we believed could be possible way before it was possible. Like we weren't even close to that yet. And I think enrollment is such a powerful thing. Like having the courage to go to someone and say, our marriage isn't working. I'm not happy. You're not happy, but I want to be. Like, and I believe we can be. Like that's like wanting to believe is like the ultimate belief to me. Like that story in the scriptures of the man who brings his son to Jesus and is like, will you heal my son? And Jesus is like, well, do you believe? And the guy goes, yeah. And I kind of get the feeling Jesus looks at him like, really? And the guy goes, well, I believe, help my unbelief. And what he's really saying in there is like, I mean, it could be interpreted so many ways, but the way I've always interpreted it is the guy's basically telling Jesus, I don't believe, but I want to. I'm willing to. Which, if you think about it, might be the strongest belief there is. To not believe in something and yet still have enough belief to want to. And Jesus was like, dude, that's enough. I'll heal your son. He wasn't like, well, come back to me when you like fully believe or you have all your belief intact. Mm-hmm. And I also think it was really courageous of the guy. The guy didn't go, when Jesus was like, do you believe? Yes. And Jesus kind of questions him and he wasn't like, well, no, I don't. It was like, help my unbelief. Like I'm wanting to believe. And I think sometimes in a marriage, like if that's all you got, that could be everything though. It's like, and that's all we had. And Melissa held on to it. Like, I want to believe this could be. I don't even think you went from there's no evidence to all of a sudden, I believe it could be great. Mm-hmm. I just think you're like, I want to believe a miracle could happen. I want to believe this is possible. And that's where it started. And then I got on board with her. And I didn't believe it could be, but I wanted to believe. And I think we were kind of helping each other want to believe. But we did start talking about what could it look like? What would we want it to look like? And maybe it never gets there, but if you talk about what you want your marriage to look like, you've at least planted the seed of the possibility it could be that. If you talk about what you want your marriage to become, you planted the seed that it now has a chance to become that. But if the only thing you ever talk about is like what you don't want and what isn't working, then you kind of keep planting the seeds for that to continue to grow. And so, I don't know, it seemed so obvious to me in the moment, but I realized I'd never shared that with this person. And I was like, dude, yes, continue talking about what isn't working in a spirit of like trying to improve it, not just criticizing each other, but like, dude, you gotta start talking way more about what you want. And to Melissa's point, hold the belief that could actually happen.
I think sometimes it's hard to know maybe even what your ideal marriage might look like, especially if you've never, like maybe you didn't grow up in a home where your parents had a marriage that you felt like you want for yourself, and maybe none of you, even your friends' parents did. So I think if it's not modeled for you, it can be a little tricky to even know what you want. So I think another thing someone could do, like if you're in that place right now, feeling like I want a marriage to be more, but I just don't even know like what that might look like. Like, is there someone in your world that you feel like does have a marriage that you admire and that you would like to have more of? And maybe it's worth having a conversation with them, or at the very least looking, at least from the outside, like, yeah, what does their marriage have that I admire, or that I aspire to have for us?
Yeah. And if the only place you can start right now is like, I don't have this really clear vision, it could be like, well, but I do know that I want a marriage that works. Mm-hmm. I want a marriage where we're both happy, right? But yeah, I know that sounds really simple, but I think it's so tempting in anything in your life and in my life to put most of our energy and effort into what we don't like and what isn't working. And we forget, though, that you also want to put energy and effort into the vision of what you could create and what you do want it to look like. And I know this sounds really simple, but I really believe this is true. If you look for your marriage to work, you'll find ways to make it work. And if you look for your marriage to not work, you'll find the ways to make it not work. And look, that can also be really scary, though. Like if you're in a place where your marriage doesn't feel great to you and you're not happy, that feels even more vulnerable to go to your spouse, your partner, and be like, hey, let me like cast this vision of what I think. Because you're like, well, do they want that? What if they don't? It's like, but I think that's when we need to be enrolled the most. And I remember a time in particular where Melissa and I were really struggling. And this is after we'd been separated. We moved, but we hit another like pretty significant roadblock or bump for us. And Melissa just like, and we were kind of having this back and forth around like keeping score. Well, you did this. And I remember at one time we were in a really rough spot, and we go to lunch one day, and Melissa just like, and I'm sure it was really vulnerable for her. I'm sure it was really scary, but she just goes, hey, I want to be married to you. I want our marriage to be amazing. I want us to create a beautiful life together. We can. You and I can create it together. You and I can do anything. Like, look at what we like. Just kind of re-enrolled me back into the vision, and I got on board with it. I got there with her. Sometimes I do the same thing for her. I don't feel like we have as much anymore in these like really big, like, okay, we got to get re-enrolled, because I believe we're enrolled and we're committed to each other. Mm-hmm. And yet still though, sometimes it's like, hey, like, look, we can talk about what isn't working, what we don't like, or we can like let's be on the same team. What do we want? Let's believe that we can create anything. Let's believe that it's possible. I just think it's so easy too in a marriage where you're so familiar with each other and you just take each other for granted. Also to kind of just like throw cheap shots at each other. And it's like, no, we're on the same team. We play for the same team. Like, let's put more energy into what we believe is possible and what we want to create than we do into like what isn't working.
I love it. And I think the thing that maybe to recap is, what do you want your marriage to look like? I think so often this always comes back to getting clear on, what do I want it to look like?
And to Melissa's point though, don't limit yourself, because what'll come up for a lot of people is like, well, I could think about what I want it to look like, but I know it's not possible. Like, don't allow the lack of belief and faith to take you out. It's like, well, I know what I want it to look like, and even if I don't think it's possible, even if I don't believe, I could at least say, here's what I want it to look like, and while I don't believe it's possible, I want to believe. If you could just put that last part in there, that's like the Father did. Yeah, I don't believe, but help me believe. Mm-hmm. Let us start there, because that's, for a lot of people, where it has to start, wanting to believe, and then that can grow into belief. All right, so that is it for today's episode of the Family Brand Podcast.
But before you go, we have something fun for you.
Yeah, like if you've ever wondered, okay, so how's our family culture actually doing? We've got an incredible quiz for that.
Good news, it's quick, it's free, and when you're done with that quiz, we'll even email you this awesome PDF full of practical ways to strengthen your family culture right away.
So all you have to do is go to familybrand.com/quiz, take the quiz, grab the PDF.
We'll see you next time.